Hello, and thanks for watching our presentation on Stories of Resilience, Alaska Native Student Transition and First-Year Persistence in Higher Education. These stories come from the culmination of a Master of Education research project, but between the two of us, they're in line with either lived experiences or what I hear from students in my work. We're excited to share this with you.
First of all, my name is Barbara Sikvayugak, and I'm originally from Utkatabee, also known as Sparrow, and I currently live here in Anchorage, and I attend UAA as a junior. And here's Valerie.
And I'm Valerie Svancara. My pronouns are she, her. I'm of European settler colonizer heritage and grew up in Colorado on the lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute peoples, and now live and work on the land of the Dena'ina in Anchorage. I currently advise first-year students at UAA and from when they submit their application through their first 30 credits. Although I first started at UAA as an admissions counselor and worked with students coming to UAA from rural Alaska. Much of my work with UAA has shaped the ideas for this master's project. So for some background, these are the numbers that universities typically look at as they weigh the supposed success of students. These numbers are also the foundation for many negative and disparaging narratives regarding Alaska Native students in higher education. These are the numbers for UAA's Fall 2018 cohort of Alaska Native students, which I'm sharing because this is the cohort of students you'll hear from today. 240 students, or about 17% of the class of incoming first-time freshmen to UAA in 2018 were Alaska Native students. Yet, the overall Alaska Native student population was around 10%. This can be seen in the retention numbers. Of 240 Alaska Native first-time freshmen who started that year, 73.3% came back for a second semester. In fall 2019, only 45.2% of students from that original group returned, and then only 28.3% of students from the original cohort came back this fall 2020. While we may want to attribute that to COVID, similar percentages exist for the previous 4 to 5 years at UAA, if not longer. So in other words, 240 students began fall 2018, and by this fall, only 68 students from that original cohort are enrolled. Unsurprisingly, similar enrollment and retention rates for Indigenous students is well documented at non-tribal universities across the US. And similar to what I was hearing at UAA, there's a prominent deficit narrative about Indigenous students that essentially blames them or their preparedness or the idea they have an inability to make it in college as reasons for these numbers. Yet rarely is anyone considering that there are people, family, and communities with stories behind these numbers. And that is what we wanted to share. Because in fact, the stories show resilience of students who made it through their first year, along with a lack of institutional understanding and responsibility for the experiences that students endure.
The research goals. When we planned the sharing circles, we held these. There were things that we wanted to hear about. What were the experiences that Alaska Native students had coming to UAA and then throughout their first year? What impacted them positively or negatively in those experiences? And what would students want to see happen for the change? The hope was that providing the stories beyond the numbers could help people hear a different narrative that focused more on the resilience of students throughout their experiences, and that maybe the university might hold itself accountable for doing a better job serving all of its students. For data collection, the project was designed using indigenous methodologies and participatory action research, which addresses some of the aspects of Western research in order to be more culturally responsive. In the spring 2019, a few weeks before the end of the semester, we held sharing circles with 6 Alaska Native first-time freshmen who were near the end of their second semester at UAA. I had become friends with them as they all lived on campus like me. They came from a variety of backgrounds, both culturally, educationally, and geographically. We gathered with snacks and gave them a space to share their experiences.
As a note, while it's common that Alaska Native students are lumped together in generalizations, it's important to realize that these students don't represent all possible experiences, but some of them. And there were certainly common themes. These are some of the topics expressed. Major support for both attending and persisting college is found from families and community. Students experience a push and pull of emotions when getting ready for college and once here. Students quickly realize that college differs from high school in a variety of ways, and they feel more or less prepared depending on where they completed high school. There were many stories dealing with navigating new environments in higher education itself and encountering racism, inadequate academic support, and concerns about safety being in a new environment. They found support through programs for Alaska Native students and from those of similar backgrounds. The biggest takeaway was that for every challenge a student experienced, they still managed to continue and finish out their first year.
When asking students about their experiences, both transitioning and through their first year, they each felt a variety of feelings regarding anticipating the change in environment when coming to college and experiencing the change. The emotions they shared in their really range from excitement to nervousness to uncertainty and were tied to reasons for going. Encouragement or expectation from family and their community, educational goals, having an example set by a role model who had attended college, wanting to get out of the village, and seeking a sense of freedom. For students who mentioned they were the first to attend college, this was seen as a source of motivation. Access to scholarships and other funding to attend school was both a reason to attend if it had been offered and a source of emotion. Typically worry if it was limited. UAA was specifically mentioned as their choice due to its location close to family or because it offered a program they wanted. A common thread through every student's story was the role that family and their community has played in getting them to come to college and offering continuous support. And we have 2 quotes from 2 of the students. So the first quote, they express, I just wanted to get out of the village because there's nothing there, and I just wanted something to look forward to. When my family found out I was going to college, they were happy for me. My dad was like, "Whoa!" and he said he hung up my acceptance letter, and I was like, "Stop!" and he was pretty happy. And I'm the first of my family to go to college, so they were pretty proud, and they still are proud of me. It was sad to leave my family, leave my community, but they know I'm away for good reason. And I went from overwhelmed to sad, and then I came here, and it started to fall in. The second quote from another student, they said, "Well, I decided to go to college because I was always encouraged to go to college by my tribe and my school and my family. And I decided I could go because mainly all of my scholarships and my tribe paid for it. And so I was like, if it's free, why not go?" My grandma was more excited for me to leave. Like she was happy that I was going to college to get an education and follow in her footsteps. And so I was really excited. She did make me excited about it. I didn't really want to leave. For me, I was mainly dreading it because I really didn't want to go to college yet. First, because I miss my home a lot. But as it got closer, I kind of realized I'd have more freedom and everything and to do, and I being told what to do. So it was just kind of 50-50 for me. I didn't want to go, but I went.
5 of the students in the sharing circle had moved to Anchorage to attend UAA, and they all came from smaller locations around Alaska. Every student who came to UAA from outside of Anchorage had a story about having to learn to navigate the campus, shuttle system, or public transportation, and how challenging it could be. They reflected on how they finally felt they could get around, but it was an overwhelming experience initially that often resulted in getting lost and being nervous to ask for help. Another consideration of coming to a new place was safety. When living in a village where you know most people and there's a certain level of trust, this was a big change for students. Some of this was due to their perceptions of Anchorage, being that it's the largest city in Alaska and considerably larger than the villages the students grew up in, and some of it was from experiences they had. So this is the first quote. Actually, there are 2 students here. The first student, I was lost the first day of classes. I was like, where is this building? And I didn't have any friends. So I didn't want to ask random people. And the second student, the first weeks of class, I was just all over the place. And like, honestly, I didn't like any of it. I just thought it was really awful because I had to learn everything. I had to figure out which place was which. And like the first week I did get lost with a group of people too. And we ended up following like a bunch of sophomores, and they pointed us in the wrong direction and made us even later. Then another student had shared, my parents were scared because Anchorage is scary. And they told me to like, watch out for this. Don't go walking alone. And like, I don't know, I was scared. They made me scared. Plus, do you guys remember like last semester when the first week and we heard the siren noise, we got phone calls and messages? Everyone goes, yes, holy cow. And then the last student, I've heard some pretty awful things about UAA before I came here. Like the campus was really dangerous and all that. And that's what scared me before I came here, because I thought all those bad things were going to happen to me too. But so far it's been pretty good. Like nothing bad has happened really.
Students are also overwhelmingly shared their perceptions of how academically prepared they felt for college based on their high school. For the students who graduated from a high school in rural, they tended to comment on feeling like they were unprepared for both the academics and navigating the differences in higher education. For students who went to larger high schools with more opportunities and electives, whether in Anchorage or a boarding school, felt that their experience helped. Even so, they mentioned significant differences in class size, pace, and expectations that they had been previously used to. When encountering differences in academics, students express feeling a variety of emotions, such as overwhelmed, frustrated, or discouraged. And so this is one of the students that they spoke about a difference in education perception of academic preparation. I feel lucky. I went to high school in a bigger school than where I used to live. We have more high school graduates than normal. And we have more classes offered, and we have the STEM program where students from the villages go to my school and they take the classes that we have to offer, but the villages don't have to offer. And I feel luckier that I went to a bigger school where just a little bit harder. However, compared to going to school in a small school to UAA, it's really fast paced. There's big classes, and the other students probably know things they know more than me growing up. I feel like I didn't take anything from some UAA classes that I took last semester and this semester. Like I feel like I went there and everything just went in one ear and out of the other. Like it's just so fast. This next quote is another student. My roommate last semester, she was going to nursing too. And I know that she was taking like a hard class because like in the village, we don't have a good enough education there. My first class that I had was A&P, and it had 80 to 100 people. Like every seat was full. I just looked at everyone and my heart was racing. And the professor started talking and I was like, I'm going to drop this class. Oh, this is another student. In my Anchorage high school, I took a lot of elective classes my senior year at UAA. I'm taking physics, calc, writing, and engineering graphics. And there was no wiggle room in that workload. And so I just kind of felt like, it is really intense for me. It's just 4 classes, and that's 2 classes less than I took in high school.
Another issue that came out from student stories was lack of proper support, much of it being within the math lab at UAA, where students should be able to receive assistance with their math homework or when studying for math. Overwhelmingly, students reported negative experiences where they felt ignored or uncomfortable asking for assistance and chose to not ever return. In one case, they found alternative resources such as YouTube for support. One story also detailed the challenges of getting help in rural Alaska when it comes to applying for college. There are often counselors responsible for several schools and a high turnover of staff. So this is one of the first quotes. When I was in high school, there were 3 different counselors at different times, so it was pretty hard to go to someone to ask about college because I knew I wanted to go. There was like no counselor at some point and I didn't know what to do. Finally, we had a counselor and I went to her and she helped with everything. And it was just overwhelming, but I was excited to finally apply and get in. And then one other student, although the sentiments of the math lab were shared widely. I went to the math tutor lab once at the beginning of the semester for like the first time, and I just sat there, but I didn't ask for help, and I was acting like I knew, like, I don't know. I felt really intimidated and like scared to ask for help. There were like, I don't even know who the tutors were, but they were like up on the board doing their own math or something, and I was just sitting there, and I was like, maybe they'll come and see if I need help after I sit here for long enough, but I didn't get any help. So I kind of just said to myself, I'm just going to leave, and I never went there again.
Students had various stories to share of the clash between the university system and a student trying to learn it, with expectations that felt unreasonable or confusing, and relief when someone understood and helped. They felt there was a lack of understanding of where they were coming from. They also witnessed how that the lack of understanding could cause a student experiencing extenuating circumstances to leave college altogether. Some students in the sharing circles mentioned experiencing racism, discrimination, and microaggressions in classes, or witnessing others experience it. A common thread was a clear distinction noticed by students between the attention white men received in classes in relation to other students. And then the next few slides are going to be quotes from students that have experienced some of these things on campus. Alaska Native students who went home and didn't return to UAA all had to go due to these really big problems happening in their family. And they couldn't really focus on their work, and teachers wouldn't help them at all or give them extra time to do stuff. And so it felt like they were kind of set up to fail no matter what they did. Another student said, also considering that I look really white to people, I feel like I do get treated differently. Like they can't tell that I'm Native or Asian. So like I feel like I get treated better because I'm white. And I've watched all my other friends get treated pretty badly because of their race. And here are more students with their quotes. And in class, I felt someone was saying that I was dumb because I'm from the village, like that I need more study skills and study help. I don't think I've been mistreated in any classes. I just feel like there's some instructors where I feel like I didn't get the same attention as. I don't want to say like a white student, but I mean, it was a white student. And the classes were mostly like white males where they got a lot of the attention and they got taught. I feel like better than I did. One teacher was like, you have to come to class with the syllabus printed out and you have to have all of this or you're going to get points deducted. And then I couldn't figure out how to print. And so then luckily one of the IT guys or whatever was there and he like printed my syllabus for me. While the experiences on campus varied, these students connected to other students from similar backgrounds through Alaska Native specific programs, such as the Native Early Transition Program, Chimairum in residence halls, Alaska Native Science and Engineering Program, also known as ANSEP, Native Student Services, all which help them form a community on campus. One program mentioned by most of the students is a NET program. Where students from rural Alaska or Alaska Native students can move onto campus a week before classes begin and a few days before everyone else and participate in week-long orientation together rather than the day-long orientation other students are offered. Another is the Chamai Room in the residence halls, which is a late-night gathering place for celebrating Alaska Native cultures and the students that occasionally has cultural programming like beading and custom making. There was also a mention of having an Alaska Native professor as a source of support. While overwhelmingly the students could speak of how they found a sense of belonging and community through groups that were generally culturally relevant outside of these spaces, there were months where students mentioned questioning whether they belonged. Ultimately, the positive connections and other experiences outweighed those feelings. And the next few slides will be quotes from students with these experiences. One student said, one of my roommates was also part of the NET program. So we got to know each other, and then before my other two roommates joined us, I met another student in the sharing circle and another person that I have a class with now. It was just nice to see like they had presentations. They were long and they all laughed. Some of them were inspiring. Also, I took university studies. There was a professor. My professor, she was from, well, I don't know. She was like from Nome or somewhere around there. And it was like really nice to see her, like a successful professor lady from a small village. And she kind of really connected with all of us. And it was really nice. And I'm sure if I need anything that I could reach out to her. And two other students said, when I got there, there was help. And I found out about the Chamai Room, and it was really nice. And then I got to meet like other people who were like from the villages, rural villages, which helped. And going through the NET program pretty much helped. In ANSEP, this is me, Schroeder, the founder of ANSEP, on a different level. So like he texts me, it's pretty cool. And then the COO over at ANSEP, Mike B, I've known him since 2011, and he's kind of intimidating. So he's able to keep me on track. And my roommate this is another student, and my roommate, once I got to UAA, we were talking when we were about to take our placement test. We looked at each other, what are we doing here? We should just go back. We don't belong here. There's too many people.
What we also found was that when students talked about why they ultimately returned for their second semester, it was directly related to their motivation for attending college in the first place. For instance, for students who had gotten support from their family to attend initially, it was their family who continued to support them to return. If career aspirations had been articulated, those were again mentioned when they talked about returning for a second semester. There is also a reference about a desire to use learning opportunities in college to eventually give back to their community. They also spoke of not wanting to give up, especially if they'd seen others do it before. So here are a couple quotes from students. When I went back home, I told them that it was like too hard and all that, and they said, it's okay, it's going to be hard, life is hard. And they say that if you need anything or more support, just talk to us back home. And another student said, I want to go into teaching, and there's been times, like a lot of times, that I just want to give up and just go home. But then I need this. Just having the goal in mind is just like, having a goal in mind is pushing me to continue. It's kind of like, I don't know, there's a lot of pressure to not give up and continue. And then one other student mentioned, I returned for a second semester because of competitiveness with my brother. After I enrolled in college, he was like really proud of me. I wasn't used to it growing up, He's like the bigger brother. We both grew up, and then he started getting like proud of me, and I was like, cool, I like this. I think another motivation for me was that semester I learned that there was Inupiaq classes, and I see the Inupiaq language is dying, and I kind of want to revive that and just teach it to the next generation too. So I'm registered for Inupiaq classes next semester.
Mentioned not doing well their first semester, questioning whether they belonged, and for some of them talked about ending the semester not very well academically. However, they all said the second semester was going much better. They could articulate what they were able to recognize from the first semester that they needed to change to ensure they could be more successful. Various aspects of their class schedule played a large role for some of them in facilitating their success, so changes were made in that regard. Others mentioned developing study skills, time management, and recognizing that attending class is important. And the next few slides will be of quotes from students. The first student said, "I now know that I can't take morning classes because I won't get up for them." And everyone in high school, I used to have 5 morning practices, so I thought, I was able to get up for those. I could get it for like a 10 a.m. class. Now 10 a.m. is too early for me. And now I know that, and I know this shuttle system, and I know more people. I know the places where I could. And then another student said, "This semester we're not ready, but just know what to expect." From first semester to second, I changed. Getting to class because last semester I was not going to class, and I learned that time management, what to do with your time. And another student said, "I think I'm a lot better this semester." That's one thing I learned this semester is kind of how to clear your emotions. And so like the first semester, I was kind of getting depressed without even knowing it. And so I was like staying up all night, and that's one of the reasons why. And then when I did start putting effort into my writing class this semester, I kind of analyzed myself and saw that that was a problem. And then so I wrote a paper on it, on displaying my emotions, kind of constraints that I had. Yeah, I got really personal on that paper, and then I got a good grade on it. So I learned from that.
Finally, we've come to student recommendations. When we asked students what they wanted to see changed, they spoke of wanting recognition of student effort and achievement, especially for those working to improve their community. Greater understanding from faculty and staff of student backgrounds and cultural differences, improved services in the math lab, and making sure all students are aware of opportunities available to them, like the NET program. For them, these would have eased the challenges that they experienced. So one student said, "I kind of wish I'd known that there was like a native transition thing, the NET program. Like I never got that kind of email or anything from them, and so I never heard about them. And so hearing all this good stuff about them, I kind of wish I knew about that earlier. I feel like the math tutors could be a lot better here. I don't mean any bad towards them, well, kinda, but still, I feel like they could be doing a lot better, and they're just not helpful at all." And another student shared, "Just like letting professors know we came from a smaller place and we didn't come from big classes. Yeah, I think that would help a lot, like a lot." And another student shared, "I would like for UAA to make us feel more recognized in the work we do and the effort we put in, to make us feel better about ourselves, to make sure we feel accomplished." And finally, I'd probably say, give recognition to all students, not just like, graduating seniors and stuff like that. Even they deserve to be recognized, but I feel like some other students are very, they give back a lot to the community, and I feel like that needs to be recognized. So Chimay Room RLs, rural leaders, who are the student workers in the Chimay Room, resident advisors in the residence halls, they do a lot for the community. They get paid, but it's not enough.
what we need to do from here, guided by student suggestions. For people who work at universities, it's critical to listen to your Alaska Native students and know that all experiences will be a little different. It's important to have an understanding of what it is like being an Alaska Native student coming to a predominantly white university. It can be a challenging journey, and once we make it to college, we should feel like we belong rather than question that. This requires greater understanding and acknowledgement of the barriers that we have to overcome. Additionally, those at the university need to know their students where they support. When working with Indigenous students, it is important to understand that their sources of support and motivation may come from other places, not as obvious to those of people who are not Indigenous. Since white or Western values involve becoming more independent, which was often not reflected in what students shared. For the students we spoke with, family and community support from back home is critical, and they feel a deep obligation to them. These 6 students all persisted through their first year because they had the support to keep them going. Along with that, we need to recognize the importance of community. All of these students who persisted were able to participate in programs or spaces where they could form a community on campus. In most cases, this was with students from similar backgrounds who were easy to relate to, which can help foster a sense of belonging. Everyone should be helping get connected to culturally sensitive spaces and make sure those programs are institutionally supported and well-funded. Universities also need more Native faculty and staff who can create safe, supportive spaces simply because they understand. And because community is important, there is room for partnerships with the communities or community agencies. So together you can support students.
The students we spoke with asked for more understanding, and some of that should involve incorporating more training, especially for faculty, on Alaska Native specific culturally responsive practices in order to make non-tribal universities more welcoming places for all students. While there is an inherent focus in Western higher education on individualism and independence, there needs to be an awareness and acceptance that this may not be shared value for our students. There also needs to be accountability for those who are not culturally responsive in their practices. Too often, trainings are skipped by those who need them the most, and even if they do attend, there is little to show for it in their approach towards students. Given the experiences of these students, we should reconsider how students are onboarded into the university, so there's a seamless transition and a warm welcome that continues with actually helpful support academically and otherwise throughout the years they're in college. Part of the onboarding experience should help students explore their motivations for attending college, as that seemed to be linked to persistence, and to help them have realistic expectations for what's to come and how to negotiate the university, since it can be quite jarring. Overall, we need to reframe how we view Alaska Native student success. We must reframe how we see preparedness as not a fault of the student and simply a piece in the puzzle of how we need to do more to ease the transition. Making it to college takes many steps of preparation with varying amount of support and resources to get it done. Then it's a massive undertaking for students to often leave their home communities to attend college and be confronted with a very Western world academic environment, a new location to navigate, a lack of understanding from professors and institutional policies and procedures, the process of forming community, discrimination and microaggressions, navigating any situations that arise especially back in their communities, and balancing responsibility to their community with school, and no recognition for overcoming challenges and persisting through their first year. Alaska Native student success is the resilience they display. We need to start recognizing this so they feel seen and valued and like they belong. And that's our presentation. We hope this provided you with some insight into the experiences of Alaska Native student experiences, both at UAA and likely at the rest of University of Alaska or universities across the country. We know that there are elements, or hope that there are elements that you can take with this as if you work in a setting with Alaska Native students. The more that we recognize the resilience we heard, the more we can support our students to complete degrees and have additional tools to give back to our communities. Thank you. Koyana.
probably not.